don't be fooled by all this. It is few words that I will say. And I will also share, yes, and I will also share a few words of his with you. But very briefly, I first met Manida in my infancy as publisher. I just brought out 4 books. And Shiva Kumar had got in touch with our then founding editor, Shomik Banerjee, and said, there are these set of essays, and we think that it is not something that should go to a coffee table kind of publisher, and you guys look sort of serious. I was just learning to walk in a certain kind of way, or crawl at that moment, if you like. So we trooped off to Shantiniketan, met him, and said, Karan, which was to be a friend through life with me, because my life with him, as my life with literature, and my life with authors and writers and poets and filmmakers, has all been about relationships. Very, very thin dividing lines, almost blurred lines between the private and the personal and the work. Everything in quite the same way that a book would become later an exhibition, and an exhibition would become a book, and so on and so forth. But each time one came up with so-called enthusiastic ideas, he would either say karo or rap you on the knuckle and say, this is rubbish. Why don't you look at it in this kind of way? I could go on with this, but I think all of you have the wonderful, wonderful sense of a relationship as individuals, as students, as friends, who all have stories of Manila. So that is a kind of, Katha Saga. I will, however, share something I wrote for dear my friend Uma today. It's 4 lines. Because I was moved with the courage and the strength with which she is facing this. Ever wondered how memory keeps alive after the death of a loved one? What nurtures this newborn? Who feeds it and gives it the sustenance that it craves? Does mourning beget memory, or is it a close cousin? And what of pain that shadows memory? We remember, and often in our remembrance, the person of our longing, no longer present, is kept alive. This in turn sustains and strengthens us. We learn to crawl and walk and run once again, to adjust a new life, walking hand in firm hand with these memories. Today is simply another day for some, for most. For you, dear Uma, it is a special one. One day on which you were reborn, fathered by memory. There was a time I remember very briefly, just to get into one tiny anecdotal mode, when during the course of a Calcutta exhibition, we'd organized a conversation between Shomika and Manisa, Manila. And after the conversation, there was a question answer, and somebody got up and said, but how long does it take you to complete the painting, sir? So he kind of smiled. He was by then in what I call his benign mode. And he said, and then he briefly explained that it is like a snap of finger at that moment. You bring a lifetime of practice and dailiness to it, but when you execute it, it happens like that. And at that point, moved by that, I had the temerity to actually write him a little letter. We had a relationship of sorts where I wrote letters and he responded with a phone call, "Tumhari chithi mili," and then, So I used to later tell him, "You're being very lazy. Here I'm trying to build a correspondence with you and you're denying me that." So he would laugh at that. But I wrote to him on my reading of that remark, which I'll share with you. Agitation. As akin to restlessness, perhaps a more volatile sibling, or a state of being that comes dressed in a cloak of many-hued anxiety. Not the poker-faced mulling that disguises the churning of the intuitive juices within. An emotion with a physical impact, like an imagined sense of slamming unbidden into a locomotive of the jet age variety and surviving. Bang, the shattering of atoms, waking up in a parallel world with your memory not only intact but enhanced. Radiant, crisp, sharp, steely, determined, clairvoyant. You see the next step even before you take it, the nimbleness of the future compacted into the palm of your hand. Oh, and the anxiety that comes from not knowing how good you are. Now imagine having harnessed this ability and fine-honed it to a split second. Snap. Yesterday, Kumar very generously shared one or two notebooks with us which he'll be scribbling in, I think almost all the way to his surgery. I will share his latest, very raw thoughts with you and begin with a small poem that he may have finished. It seems finished to me, maybe it isn't. A salt white sun sprinkled with pins of pepper, floating with the smells of an early spring. But the days are burning hot. To fully appreciate a work of art or enjoy a poem, you should have a surprise meeting with it. There it is all dressed to impress, and you are open to being overwhelmed. Our responses to works of art or literature can be of various kinds. To start with, a surface relationship, sliding over it to keep up with senses. Then an encounter with its details, its context, story, its style. Then the discovery of a special feature that lifts you up into a new horizon like a tower. When they see you painting, working, they often ask you working for a show? By which they mean a sale. For them, a painting is something material, a removable object that others will pay for and buy, to decorate their houses or offices or movie halls. That a painting is a device to open your vision and extend its reaches, broaden its coverage, does not readily occur to them. And then the last page had just this line that said, there is this old man who sits under the peepal tree.